Most of these men in the later part of their lives are looking at their legacy. And many of them don't even have a choice or a chance to create one. They've ruined it building their own self-image of themselves.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey, and today from the Panhandle of Florida, Destin, Mr. Chris Harper. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, Remington. How are you?
Chris, you have a fascinating story. We're going to start. I do want to let everyone know that there are some episodes, some shows that go a little bit deeper, get a little bit darker. We've had shows of people overcoming some pretty crazy odds and triumph. But I do want to let you know, if you're riding in the car with your kids or just in a family setting, probably one you want to save for when you're not around any of the kids, because there are some elements of Chris's story that are pretty dark. But the cool thing is we always end with hope, and that's why you're on the show, is just the hope of your story and hope of the future for anyone that hopefully we can encourage. But where I'd like to start with your story is before you even got into real estate, you had a construction company and you were crushing it, and you decided to give it all away. So let's start there.
Yeah, so in Colorado, I was one of the largest builders in Southern Colorado. And I had a crazy diagnosis that, after numerous doctor confirmations, it became clear that I couldn't stay at that elevation. I would have to relocate. For 5 years, I had done a magnificent job of decimating my competition. They couldn't compete with me, not from a price standpoint, but it was all the way across the board. I was true to my word. I did what I said I was going to do, and I did it on time. When I had the diagnosis, I had 9 major surgeries on my spine, and we were going through that. I felt from the Lord that I was supposed to give my company away to one of my biggest competitors, and I wanted to have a meeting with him. So I sat him down at lunch and I said, look, Ben, I think you've heard of kind of some of the stuff that's been going on in my life. Oh yeah, Chris, I feel for you. I really do. Well, I wanted to meet with you because I wanted to tell you that I'm relocating to Florida, and I'm actually here to tell you that I'm going to give you everything in my company. So all of my assets, book of business. And Chris, look, man, you've done a phenomenal job of competing with us, but I'm in no position to buy your company. I can't. And I said, no, Ben, I don't think you understand. As of next month, you will own my company. You're not, I'm giving it to you. You'll have my assets, my books of business. And he just started breaking down because I was putting him out of business. And, it was interesting because I felt like God wanted me to do this, but I didn't understand the why until a year later. And in 6 months during the acquisitions period, when I was training him how we were doing things, giving him that secret sauce, I actually led him to the Lord. And we had amazing conversations about God. It changed who he was. It changed the relationship he had with his family. And 6 months later, so 1 year, almost to the day of after I gave him the company, he passed away. His kids contacted me. They found him in his bed with his Bible open, and they wanted to tell me how grateful they were because who he was in the year after he met me was what they get to remember about their father.
Radical change, I'm sure.
It was a radical transformation. Yeah.
It's funny when you're talking about, like, when you sit down, people don't understand what you're talking about when something that no one ever does, they do. Like I even small things, like when we call a realtor to feature them, and every other call they're getting, someone's trying to sell them something, including magazines. We're like, hey, we want to feature you. You're like, all right, how much is this going to cost? No, I don't think you understand. Like, this is free. We do this for free. We do this based on nominations. I can't imagine how much greater a conversation would be sitting down. Your number one competitor who's putting you out of business says, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even do that? How do you even make the acquisition? How do you do a $0 acquisition?
It's a simple transference. We had attorneys write everything up where I'm gifting him everything. I'm gifting him the books of business. I'm the assets. I'm gifting those to him as well. He's retaining title to the thing. Just
Why did you choose him
annoying,
instead of someone else?
It was very specifically supposed to be him. Here's the why, though, because when I gave him everything and everything, when he passed away, I was very conflicted by that. Because this is 15 years that I had built this company. I established myself. I mean, you have to understand, by 2018, the year I moved here, I had won Builder of the Year 6 straight years, and I was inaugurated Builder Hall of Fame for Colorado. I was the best. And everything dissolved overnight. The 2 biggest companies in Southern Colorado dissolved overnight. And so I'm screaming to God, how was this for my good? And that was when I had a dream. I had a dream that night, and it was so powerful. It reshaped who I am, because God came to me that night and he showed me Ben in heaven. And he said, don't ever put the value of something that I help you build equal to the value of one of my children. I will give everything I allow you to build for one of my children to be with me. And that was when it just reshaped all of my focus, was that everything I'm doing, I'm either doing it for him, or what am I doing it for? What's the point of it?
So let's back up then, Chris, because you weren't always this way. This wasn't you didn't wear your faith on your sleeve like you do now. I know a little bit more to the story. Let's back up even further and tell me the radical change that you had in your life to where now you're having visions through dreams.
Well, I mean, the radical transformation that I had was about 21 years ago. I had a drug alcohol overdose. I committed suicide. I was declared dead over an hour. And in that experience, I spent an extended period of time in hell. I actually met God in death. And coming back from something like that, you truly aren't the same. There's nothing about the way that you look at people or the way that you look at your life equal to the way that you used to. And so having a second chance at life, the things that used to matter to me don't matter to me at all. The things that matter very little to people, it's what the Bible says, that the least of these is the greatest in my kingdom. And that truly is. The things that we undervalue, like time, for example. I sit in the table in my conference room that I'm at right now with billionaires. They've accumulated everything, and the only thing of value to them now is time and quality time that they get with their family. And it's interesting to me that these are the things that we take the least amount of consideration of value while we're grinding. But it's the most valuable thing that we consider later when we have very little of it left.
So you were declared dead for an hour. And in that time, you experienced it in hell, but you said you met God. How does that work?
Oh man, that's a 386 page book that's coming out called Beyond Hell's Flames pretty soon.
You've been writing it, right, for a while.
I've been writing it for 13 years. I've had 11 near-death experiences, 9 major medical procedures, and 1 major medical diagnosis in the process of trying to write this book.
Really? That's all since the time.
Yes. There is a real force out there that does not want this book coming out. I can tell you that, because if you knew the value that you have to God, I mean, the value that sparked the first war of heaven, the value that separated us from all of creation, we are so valuable to God. It's unreal, and we don't understand it. We don't know it. The identity crisis that we are faced with is one of devalue. It's one of us not even understanding that we even have value, and we have to seek other means to create value. When it's inherent in us. We were created with it. It was gifted to us, and it's something that death really, really, you recognize it. You recognize it when it's been stripped from you.
So you've been writing the novel, and it's coming out soon. It's about your life. You've had 11 near-death experiences. Are these all real estate related? Like maybe real estate's the problem here, Chris.
No, it's writing the book has wanted to cause it's created conflict within the spiritual realm. The devil doesn't want me to put this book out there. I mean, I've had people drive their car in the middle of an intersection and slam on their brakes, anticipating me to run head into them. I've been thrown from a motorcycle 220 feet through metal fences just from somebody that just wanted to kill me, and I don't understand why. It's been a very interesting journey, and a lot of that ceased when the book was finally finished. And so,
well, you mentioned you were talking to some ministers, pastors about your experience, and I think there. Look, I mean, this is a podcast where it represents many different faiths, religions, different people, different walks of life, different countries. When you share your faith, which I appreciate about your story, you're just sharing your story. This is what happened to you. You're not telling anyone how to believe, but when you share your faith, I imagine you get pushback because it's hard for us to understand someone who dies and goes to hell or heaven. I remember that book when Heaven is for Real came out, like how much that divided the country in terms of, do we even believe this? And I imagine that's pretty hurtful for you when you've gone through something, and you try to share it and they just don't believe you. You're so passionate about this that you share it with people to help them. How do you relate this? I mean, how do you wake up and do real estate every day when you're so passionate about your story?
Well, God gives us unique giftings, and we all operate within those giftings to have the greatest impact. My gifting has been in business. I operate 5 companies in Florida. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a philanthropist. And so God has given me a seat at the table of billionaires and kings because of my accolades and achievements in business. If I had not created that, if I had not accomplished those things, I probably would not have the seat to speak into the lives of those men. I'm not a well-educated person in philosophy and in religion. I speak from my heart and I speak from my experience. And what I can say is that when it relates to death and when it relates to hell, a qualifier that would definitely give anybody pause is anybody that has experienced hell should be able to answer this question within a fraction of a second. And the question is very simple. What is the most painful experience that you had when you were there? And if anybody hesitates with this answer, I would challenge whether they experienced it. But in life, Remington, have you ever loved anybody? Have you ever had love? Have you ever experienced love?
I have.
Have you ever experienced joy?
I have.
Have you ever had peace at some point where you just felt that calming sensation in your spirit?
I believe so.
Right. So these character qualities that we attribute to human qualities, these are actually characters. These are qualities of God. Mm-hmm. These are not just human qualities. This is a God characteristic. And the most painful thing that you experience when you go to hell is the absence and the removal of him from you. You have no ability of having hope. You have no ability of finding love. You have no ability of finding joy. And it's something that is just, that loneliness cannot be expressed, because at any point, even at our lowest point, we can have hope that something can change.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is I feel like some people would say that. I mean, you 21 years ago had suicide. There's people who have been on this show previously. I think about Wayne Solomons, the same thing, suicide attempt. In those moments, that has to be the one thing that they are feeling is I don't know if you would say a glimpse of hell, which is there is no hope, right? Yeah. And that's where I said, that's why I wanted to make sure everyone at the top of the hour, top of the show understands that that's where we're going to end, because there definitely is hope in this message. But if that's where someone's starting, that has got to be an unthinkable pain to decide to take one's life. So is that, am I off there?
No, I mean, truly, when you get to the point where you are absolutely hopeless, what's the point of moving forward?
Yeah.
And that's, I think we've all kind of experienced moments of that, where you struggle with that. What's the point of moving forward? What's the point of trying to climb this mountain any further? And that's where it has to be understood, the value that we have to God. It has to be understood that the value that I would say that in the manner in which that you struggle, like let's say that you struggle financially.
Mhm.
Serve others financially in that way. Even if you have 2 cents, 2 pennies, serve somebody else in need in the same way that you need it. If you feel like you are not loved, love someone.
Mm.
Love
That's powerful. I've seen so many times when you can even see videos of this on social media. But if there was a trend going around to see the generosity of people, and they were essentially going up to people, asking them for money or food, and then they'd sit down next to a homeless person and ask them for money or food, and every single time they would give them half of what they had.
Yeah.
This experience that you had, it seems like from day one of waking up, you've been on a mission to help other people, and specifically people who are in your walk of life, right? Your first person you mentioned was a person that was your number one competitor, right? Then you are now, and we talked about it on the show, where you're essentially in different rooms that most people are not in, CEOs, millionaires, billionaires. And in those conversations, money is a dominant force. Power is a dominant force. It would be easy to think that there's not a whole lot of faith conversations at the top in some of those circles. And so you believe you've been gifted to be able to reach people that others can't. When you have those conversations, what do you think? What's the pushback that you get?
I don't get a lot of pushback, only because I don't judge them. I don't, what I'm there to do is just share with them my perspective, just from my experience. I'll give you a really short example. The first meeting I had in my nonprofit coffee shop, Causeway, I had a meeting with the table of multiple billionaires at the table. Each one of them is going around the room sharing who they are, and it comes to me, and I can't hold a candle to these people. But what I felt like I was supposed to say is, at what point, gentlemen, did you guys feel that your cup was full? And instead of allowing your cup to runneth over and positioning people underneath of you so that that overflow would increase them and their life and change their lives, you just kept bringing larger and larger cups to be filled. We were gifted to do something. And those men were gifted in wealth. They were gifted in business to create wealth. But for what purpose? In 3 generations, their own families probably won't even know their name or their passions or their own stories.
Wow.
Your wealth is being spent by people that don't even care about you, but yet you were the one that was gifted in it. What are you going to do with it? That creates a lasting impact. Most of these men in the later part of their lives are looking at their legacy. And many of them don't even have a choice or a chance to create one. They've ruined it building their own self-image of themselves. And nobody cares when they die. They only want to make sure that they're on the wheel. What do you
I once had someone in the industry once told me that their favorite quote is, "They never put your net worth on your tombstone."
Yeah.
And because it's really easy to sit down and that's all you talk about when you're talking business is the next deal, the next quantum leap that you're going to take, what it can do. And sometimes you talk about the impact that you can have with those people.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me that even at the top, when I ask somebody the question, how much is enough, or what is your plan once you've made enough to provide for your family, what is the plan for the money past that?
Yeah.
And some people are just growing to grow, and for no reason. I mean, a lot of them at the top, even within our own company. I ask our area directors that, our franchisees that, I ask realtors that. And if you don't have a plan for that money, I got to be honest, it gets pretty depressing once you actually get that money. Because it's
Yep.
like you thought
There's
that money
always
would be
somebody-
what it would be like. Hey, I'm finally arrived. I'm finally happy.
Yeah.
And then you get that money, and you're like, whoa,
What's next?
yeah, what's next?
And the reason why, though, is because you were created, you were purposed to be able to create that wealth for a reason that was bigger than yourself. So when you attain it just for yourself, it's never enough because it wasn't for you. It wasn't just for you. It wasn't just for your family. I mean, I know guys that they finally get, and I say finally, they finally get the 160-foot yacht. Well, their buddy in Saudi Arabia has the 241 with the helipad. And they go, well, gosh darn it. And that's the point, is there's always somebody wealthier than you.
Yeah. It's easy to do, Chris, because like when I think I have a really good grasp on this, and then I realize like we're in the same walk of life with my brother-in-law, and we always joke that whatever toy they get, I mean, we just got a camera so that we could see the baby in the back seat, right? And now they have to get that camera because that's a great idea, right? And that's a very small version of what you're talking about, but to be honest, it's the same exact thing as the yacht.
Yeah.
I struggle with that sometimes. I struggle with wondering how much is it, like, do I really need this, or is this something that is a yacht?
But we all do. That's the thing, is that inherent in every one of us is an insatiable appetite to accumulate things, especially in North America. I mean, since we are a child, we are being sold to, just like you said with real estate agents. Every time we turn around, somebody has the new tool or gadget or modality that's supposed to revolutionize our business. But that's the thing, is just, do we ever take a moment to see, are we making an impact greater than ourselves? Are we making any impact? Because once you've achieved the top, where do you go from there? Because I promise you, if you start looking hard enough, somebody's actually above you already.
Oh, yeah, there's always bigger fish.
It's unattainable.
Yeah. And
then you feel inferior always, even though you've attained what more than 99% of the world is trying to. You've already attained it, and you're still unhappy.
Well, you've put this practice in your own business, but then now you've grown your business with other people. And one of the quotes that Bobby put in these notes is hiring based on gifts and not on talents. And I want you to expand on that. What does that mean? You're hiring based on gifts, not talents.
Well, talents can be learned, right? So I can teach somebody to be excellent at whatever it is that I need, right? But where they are gifted, this is something that I said, God has created us not to just be handymen, where we're only good at, like, we're good at everything, we're not great at anything. But if you can pull out of people what they were created for, they will do that one thing better than anybody. And that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to pull that gift out of them.
How do you recognize that? What things do you do with the people you hire to put them in a position to show you what their gifts are? I
don't know if that can be taught or if that's something that's discerned just within me. I brought on my COO of my property management company, Destined Dreamers. He came to me not telling me that he had a master's degree, not telling me that he had all of these accolades. He was just He just wanted to work for me. He was in a desperate place. And I had no idea, because of his humility, what he was gifted at, his superpowers, his one thing. But I knew that there was something about him that I needed. I needed to have that in my company. And over the next year, I realized what it was. And sometimes, as you know, in a hierarchical system, which most companies are, people at the top don't spend enough time with those that make the greatest impact in their organization to see if they are putting them in the right spot. Like, I mean, Jeff Hoffman spoke at a conference recently that I spoke at as well. And he's the founder of Priceline. And he said something that really impacted me, was he said that he had an amazing salesperson. But this guy was hated by everybody in their company. I mean, he was just a vitriolic person to be around, but he had the best sales. Well, Jeff and him had some conflict, and Jeff had to let him go. And he thought, well, our sales are going to go down and it's going to impact everything, but we're just going to have to try to push through it. In the next quarter, sales were far greater than they were with him out of the company. And the reason why was because he was able to then steward the gifts of the people underneath of him, underneath of that salesman, and allow their talents to blossom and flourish, which they didn't have a chance to underneath of that dictatorship. And so many times it's allowing enough time with the people in our organization to see who they really are, to put them in the right place, to thrive. And the only way to do that is by spending time with them. And I don't think we do a good enough job with that.
Yeah, that's one thing we really focus on at Real Producers and our parent company, and two is not hiring brilliant jerks. There's nobody who's going to outsell the damage they could do to a company if they don't embrace the culture.
Yes. Well, you're looking at it's either transactional or relational. If it's transactional, you can guarantee that client will go with another agent if they think they're going to do a better job for less. Mm. If it's relational, they won't even interview someone. Mm-hmm. What time are you putting into them? If they truly believe that you're doing this for them and it's not just your commission, you're building a relationship with them. And that's the reason I've gotten to where I'm at. I just build relationships with people.
Well, I love your story. It's dark at times, it's drastic, and what you've done since then is pour into other people because of your own experience. And honestly, I think that's admirable. That's what we're looking for. That's the same thing with our finances, right? Once you've made the money that you can provide for your family and maybe even buy a couple of toys, what then? What now is your plan for your money? And I like your take on that. Where can we find you? When is this book coming out?
My publishers are still teasing with me a little bit, but it'll be for sure out the first part of October, if not the last part of September. So
I love it.
Beyond Hell's Flames. You can see it at Beyond Hell Flames, hellsflames.com as well.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and put that in the description of this show. Thanks for being on, Chris.
Man, I'm so appreciative of having me. I appreciate your time as well.
If you want to influence who we have on the show or what we talk about, send us an email at podcast@realproducersmag.com. Give us your take on Chris's story, and if you want his book, send us an email. We'll send you the link. We'll see you next time.